Lyla returned to work, a brave face masking the shame that clung to her like a shroud. Her personal assistant, Cariode, hinted softly that this could be someone close to her, someone she trusted. But Lyla, in her pain, brushed off the talk, desperate to simply accept what had happened and move on. The news had gradually faded, replaced by new trends, new fleeting fascinations. But the ruins of Lyla's life remained. She'd lost it all, every last bit. Endorsement deals dissolved. Her empire, once a gleaming edifice, crumbled as investors pulled out. Her image was crippled, scarred beyond immediate repair. Only a few loyal friends still checked in. Even Ben had called, his concern genuine. George had, too, once or twice, calls she'd never expected, messages she hadn't returned. Her social media content, once king, no longer pulled traffic. Somehow, the scandal had dealt a major blow to her image and reputation. In the world of the elite, it was reputation before money, and Lyla was stripped bare. She tried to salvage some connections, setting up meetings with former collaborators, networking events she used to swank into as an honored guest. But the calls went unreturned. Invitations stopped coming. The whispers turned to outright snubs. Doors that were once flung open for her now remained firmly shut, guarded by PR teams determined to distance their brands from her tarnished image. Even casual mentions of her name in industry circles were met with uncomfortable silence. Then the real punch in the gut. When she tried to access her personal finances, her bank accounts were frozen, a direct consequence of the rapid, damaging hits to her solvency. The world that once catered to her every whim was now a locked gate. Lyla was sitting, mindlessly watching TV, when an intrusive thought screamed loud in her head. Like something she had forgotten, a crucial piece of a puzzle suddenly clicking into place. The multi-million-dollar brand they co-owned, built on their relationship and combined influence, fashion, music, culture. They had signed a watertight contract with a ruthless clause, buried deep in the legal jargon. If either party's reputable image is damaged, they could be bought out for cheap, pennies on the dollar. She paused the TV. Silence descended, thick and heavy. Her heartbeat skipped. Is what I'm thinking really true? Is he that much of a snake? She called Cariode, her fingers trembling as she dialed. He arrived quickly, his expression grave. He began to speak, hinting at what he'd kept quiet, for fear of upsetting her. He had, on 3 separate occasions, seen George having exclusive meetings with business associates, secret gatherings with other stakeholders. George and Lyla were partners. Such secrecy was properly suspicious. Cariode, a smart man, had recorded the meetups, discreetly capturing George's hushed conversations. Lyla was stunned. That night, Cariode also revealed how he had stumbled upon hints, fragments of conversations, that suggested George was, in fact, responsible for the leaked sex tape. "What the fuck?" Lyla whispered, her voice barely audible. "You snake." The words were quiet, venomous, a slow burn of realization, a proper villain. She stood, no tears now, just raw rage, excruciating pain, and a profound sense of betrayal.
The storm outside was going absolutely mental. Rain lashing against the windows, thunder grumbling like a grumpy old man in the distance. Inside the penthouse suite, the lights were low, throwing long, moody shadows across the plush velvet and pricey artwork. It smelt of whiskey, knackered flowers, and something far more raw, like sheer terror. Lyla stood by the window, her silhouette framed by flashes of lightning. Her little black dress clung to her like a second skin. Her phone buzzed on the coffee table, the screen lighting up with a flood of notifications. Gold digger. Shameless. How much did he pay you this time? She couldn't bring herself to even look at the bloody thing. Across the room, George was slumped in the armchair, shirt unbuttoned, his chest rising and falling in uneven gasps. His eyes, usually sharp, cold, impossible to read like a poker player's, were proper glassy now, rimmed red, as if he hadn't had a wink of sleep in days, maybe weeks even.
You leaked it! No, that wasn't me. He turned his head slowly, his eyes meeting hers, a flicker of defiance. How do I record a sex tape where you don't even see me, where you don't even recognize the location as my penthouse? What the hell, Lyla? Don't be daft. But she didn't flinch, not a squeak, because she had already gone the extra mile. She had hired video editing gurus, experts in detecting doctored content, pouring her remaining funds into uncovering the truth. Their verdict: the video had been recorded at his penthouse, but it had been doctored masterfully enough to put only her into spotlight, to make her look terrible, deliberately crushing her image. A classic hit job. She told him this. He didn't answer, just breathed, a harsh, ragged sound. His eyes were rimmed red, dark circles beneath them, like he hadn't had a wink of sleep in days, maybe weeks. The pressure of the corporate fallout was clear on his face, proper knackered. He looked. I was your brand, your leverage, your fucking co-founder. Her voice was a fragile wire, humming with contained fury. George, finally looking at her, his gaze unwavering. And you were leaving. Every brand wanted you now. Not us, not me. You were going to do a runner. So you tanked me first. Drive me down, buy me out. Clean. A proper stitch-up. You said no strings. Business only. I just made it business. It's the corporate jungle, Lyla. Every man for himself. That line hung in the air like poison, each word a festering wound. Lyla stepped back, as if the air around him had become toxic, like she had just understood, truly understood, how deep the rot goes. The corporate sharks had claimed another victim, and it was her. Was this because of the contract? The clause? The one that said if either party's reputable image gets damaged, the other buys out their shares. For cheap? His face cracked. Finally, the mask shattered, motive uncovered, stark and ugly. The business acumen he'd once prided himself on was now tainted with malice. You don't get it, Lyla. My label's dead. No one wanted me anymore. You were the brand. I was just background noise. I was washed up. He stepped forward, attempting to soften the blow, to bridge the chasm he'd created, but she backed away, repulsed. You didn't just leak a tape. You sold me. To buy yourself a comeback. You mugged me off. Then he dropped the bomb, a final desperate act of self-preservation. I'm dying. You didn't know that, did you? My daughter, Kim, she needs that money. I needed a payout before I go. That's it. That's the truth. I'm on my last legs. Silence descended, heavier than the storm outside. Pity tried to creep in, a small, insidious voice. But pain held the door shut, locking it against any softening. She looked at him, really looked, seeing past the betrayal to the broken man beneath. A man who, in his desperation, had played a dirty game. Tell me it's not true, George. Which part? That I'm a gold digger. That I tried to mug you off. Because right now, all those headlines, those whispers, they could be you manipulating, staging all that just so you could ruin me. And now you say you're dying? Her voice rose, raw with disbelief and hurt. 2 years, George. 2 years and you couldn't even trust me with this? What the hell? She looked at him, her eyes filled with tears that finally spilled over. For a moment she couldn't breathe, choked by the sheer enormity of it all. The storm outside mirrored the storm inside her, a swirling vortex of grief, rage and a helpless love she never knew she had for him, now twisted into a bitter poison. George lunged forward. "You're not going anywhere." His hand clamped over her mouth, muffling her gasp. Panic. She burst out of the penthouse, heart hammering against her ribs. She went straight to her brother, David. He was an ex-military officer, solid as a rock, dependable and fiercely protective. With him, George wouldn't dare touch her. If he could go to this extent just for a bit of greed, she was genuinely scared for her life, proper terrified. While in hiding at David's, Lyla went public.
This is me, raw and unfiltered. For too long, I've let others define my story, but no more. My truth is my power.
Not everyone believed her story at first. It was a bombshell, sparking a fierce online feud and a deeper investigation. Meanwhile, George went into hiding. Knowing the truth was out, and Lyla was still breathing, a direct threat to his freedom. But soon, he was nicked. The tide turned swiftly. The damage to Lyla's reputation was dramatically reversed. The world saw George as the real villain, and the very scheme he'd planned for her backfired spectacularly. His own image was irrevocably tarnished, a pariah in the corporate world. He was done for. And then she spoke.
Today, we reclaim our narrative. Today, we forge a new legacy.
Not to George, not to the blogs, not to the ravenous press, still chasing headlines, to the people, the world, no glam, no
long,
edits,
truth has been a
just
casualty.
Lyla,
But today,
in
we
full
reclaim
voice,
it together.
raw and unyielding, the kind of unscripted honesty that cuts through the noise. The narrative flipped. The public, always hungry for a new story, swung wildly. Survivor, not a victim. Lyla tells all and exposes the real snake. On the day Lyla stepped out to speak to the world, a new document was handed over to her as the sole owner of the once jointly owned multi-million-dollar company. George's share was bought for $1, as stamped by the court. That's what you call a proper kicker. Flashes, screams, paparazzi shouting her name, a desperate chorus in the frenzy. The media circus was in full swing. Lyla steps out of the building, just truth on her skin, shining in the glare. And this time, she doesn't flinch. Not a peep. They came for her name. She gave them a legacy instead.
In a world increasingly obsessed with exposure, we forget that privacy is not a luxury, it's a human right. Lyla's story is not just a scandal, it's a violation, a breach of dignity, a calculated act of digital violence that goes far beyond the headlines and hashtags. Let's be clear, the conversation is not about whether recording a sex tape is right or wrong. That debate is a distraction, a convenient excuse for society to justify voyeurism and cruelty. The real issue is consent, control, power. The moment that tape left the private space it was intended for, without her permission, a line was crossed. A woman's body became currency. Her silence became spectacle. Her shame, a public feast. This isn't just about Lyla. This is about every woman whose intimate life has been weaponized against her. It's about girls who walk into schools to whispers, and boys who are taught that exposure is conquest. It's about a system that punishes women for their sexuality while rewarding those who exploit it. Leaking someone's private video isn't just a mistake or gossip, it's abuse. It is a gross violation of human rights and a direct attack on a woman's right to agency over her body and her narrative. To shame her is to become part of the violence. We must learn to hold space for those whose privacy has been shattered. We must speak out not just for justice, but for empathy, for healing, for change. Because no one man, woman, or otherwise should be publicly punished for what they did in private, least of all by a society that thrives on hypocrisy. Until we treat digital consent as seriously as physical consent, until we see leaked tapes as a form of assault and not amusement, we remain complicit.